Hi everyone, my name is Olga, and in today's video I wanted to look at the Vedic astrology chart of Richard Hart. Richard Hart is the man behind a coin called HEX in crypto, and he's also behind the project and creator of a project called Pulsechain that got recently released. There is a documentary that just came out about Richard and hexagons and his coin and his projects called The Highest of Stakes. It just premiered here in US and UK. So I wanted to look at his chart because there are certain aspects of his personality that make astrological study very interesting. And also I wanted to see what are the reasons, like what drives this man, what are his aspirations, what is his goals, what's driving him, and why he chose outrage marketing as a means of promoting his projects, his products, and also whether moving forward we're going to see more of that outrage marketing or they're going to be a different type of Richard. We will look at the planetary periods towards the end of this video, and we'll try to make some predictions about the future and how things will play out. So Richard was a businessman from early on, and you can see it clearly in his chart that he has a very business mind, very business-like personality. He's directed towards thinking about how to get profit, how to make material wealth. And he was minting bitcoins way before most of us even knew what Bitcoin is. So he was in crypto very, very early on. And he also, we will talk about his ability to spot the trends and to sense the trends. And so he was financially independent very early on, before he even created his most famous projects such as HEX and Pulsechain. In the most recent sequence of events, he was accused by SEC, which is American government agency that I don't exactly know what it stands for, but they accused him of using investors' money in order to buy personal luxury items for personal use. He also famously owns the biggest, largest black diamond in the world called Enigma, and we will look in the chart and see also where in his chart we can see that he will be attracted to things of that nature, collecting items, specifically gemstones and precious stones. So overall, we want to kind of analyze and see if his personality that we see on the screen, if that matches his personality that we see according in the birth chart, to the birth chart, his chart. So the first thing that we want to look at is this the sign that was on the eastern horizon at the time of his birth. And he actually shared his birth data on Twitter a while back. So this data, I'm pretty sure it's accurate. His birth time, it's October 9th, 1979, 2318. He was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He was born under the sign of Gemini. Now, this Mercury rulership gives him a very strong mental abilities. He is very clever. Has agile mind. This is a chart that's ruled by planet Mercury. It's all about communication, information exchange, talking, ability to solve puzzles. All of these things are very much true to his nature. Geminis, they are symbolized by a twin. So there is this, first of all, it's a dual sign, already makes a personality kind of non-static, very movable in a way. And also being a Gemini symbolized by a twin, it's also this ability to switch personalities at will and kind of, in order to blend in with the environment. It's a sign of a chameleon who can change and adapt according to his own wills and desire. Also, Mercury rulership gives him a very great idea of ability to do commerce, to sell, buy, kind of sense and see the value of things in order to see if there is an equal exchange, it can be traded for something. This ability basically being a businessman, a very prominent sign of Libra, and quite a bit of influence of Mercury and Venus in his chart together. So there is this idea of multiple personalities with Gemini, and they're all different facets of his personality. It's just that his ability to switch these personalities when he pleases is something that is very unique to Geminis specifically. So he has most likely very a lot of diverse interests. Geminis are probably the only sign that actually excel at multitasking and doing things, several things at once. Although it's not recommended for most signs, Geminis, they have this ability to do things, and actually that gives them a lot of stimulation and keeps them interested. this sign is very mental, they love to kind of break things down and see how they work in their head, and kind of constantly thinking about and processing a vast amount of information. And this ability to analyze this information, what makes them sort of excelled among the other signs. This is a very communication and information-oriented signs. There is also a double influence of Mercury, because it rules his chart, but also Sun is placed in Virgo, which is another Mercury-ruled sign. So it makes this ability to break things down and analyze even more prominent in his chart. But we will talk about the Sun in Virgo more specifically. So Gemini is related to this idea of a mental genius. He was born under a constellation called Ardra. Ardra is ruled by Rahu. This Mercury and Rahu combination together makes him really able to spot the trends early on, more than society. Ardras in general, people who are born under Ardra, are quite a bit misunderstood by their contemporaries, and it takes society sometimes to catch up to their ideas in order to appreciate their projects and products. I think of Nikola Tesla, who died pretty poor. He had Saturn in Ardra and several other planets placed in Gemini, but he was so ahead of the time that we are only now catching up and kind of appreciating all the innovations that he did. Similarly, this is a sign of innovators. The Geminis, they excel at combining the art of synthesis and ability to combine several ideas in order to come up with something new. So this is where the gift of Richard is this ability to see where things are maybe a little less efficient, which is the gift of Virgo, ability to see inefficiency and everything what's wrong. He's very good at critiquing things, finding faults, finding errors, error proofing, maybe bug proofing his code and things of that nature. So Geminis, they love to multitask, and also they love to this idea of doing something that stimulates the mind, something that catches their mental imagination. It's a very mental sign. They love to think. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's it's at fault, because it may be hard for them to turn off their brain, and because of they are so used to processing the information and thinking about it all the time. Because of these diverse talents and diverse interests, Gemini sometimes have a hard time putting themselves into some sort of role, or identifying with a specific role in life. So there's quite a bit of self-search and wondering, who am I and what is it that I'm supposed to do in life? And this that perhaps is the reason why sometimes Geminis, they look for different outlets and try themselves in very different roles and different roles. So this Mercury-Rahu combination definitely creates a combination of a mental genius, this ability to spot the trends early, to make the trends actually, and to be fascinated with revolutionary technological changes, which is all Rahu significations. Rahu here has a strong influence in his chart because it's positioned in the third house of personal effort. It rules his nakshatra, that is, rules his chart, and also rules the nakshatra where his Lagnesh is placed, which is Mercury and Swati. So all of this together makes him really kind of ahead of most of us, really ability to see the future in a way, to sense the future and to predict it, maybe even. So he's very good at communication, and Ardra is the nakshatra whose power, or the Shakti secret power, is the power of personal effort. And it is so true about this specific chart as well, because aside from being born under Ardra, he also has 3 planets in third house of personal effort and willpower, which make it this idea of personal willpower, kind of personal effort, very prominent in his life. And I think he even says in one of his interviews that his favorite quote is, "Nothing can replace the power of effort." And this is just so clear, illustrates this idea how a person speaks through the positions of his planets, of his constellations and nakshatras. So Ardra is the constellation where person really believes in personal effort and is able to fulfill a lot of his wishes, a lot of his exercise kind of personal effort in order to get his own wishes fulfilled. So it's wish fulfilling nakshatra in a way. But Ardra is also associated with emotional intensity. It is symbolized by a teardrop, and it is ruled by an angry form of Shiva called Rudra. It's a most destructive form of Shiva, and there is certain emotional intensity to this man that we might not see, but maybe his close friends or his close family members can see. There is definitely this emotional ability to experience quite a bit of very strong emotions. Like Rudra is the god of storms. He wields his thunderbolt and throws it, so he is can get angry easily because of such emotional intensity. Other people, they kind of have to learn early on to transcend these emotions and kind of rise above them in order to be able to deal with them. And once they do it, and once they know how to transcend the emotions, or that they learn about themselves, that there is from time to time there is a certain emotional build-up that happens and the release needs to happen, they kind of can rise above it and become quite spiritually advanced. And there are several things in the chart actually that point that Richard can be interested in spirituality as well. So Ardra Nakshatra is an interesting one because there is in mythology Rudra is or Shiva, or angry form of Shiva, Rudra is he is the god or a deity for all the outsiders, all the misfits in the society who don't have a place to live or who don't quite blend in into a society. They come to Rudra and he goes and dances with them in the graveyards. He has a snake around his neck, and he gets drunk with his followers and dances at the graveyards. So there is this idea of, first of all, graveyards traditionally is like a place where people don't want to go, or where maybe people don't want to avoid due to fear of death. But this idea of getting together with his followers and dancing and getting together with all of the misfits of the society, or all people who don't want to live by the rules of the society, is definitely prominent for Ardra people. Rudra is a lord of sacrifice and healing. He is the one who removes the pain and suffering from others. It is one of his strong urges and drives in life is probably to help others, to ease the suffering of others. In mythology, again, Rudra was the divine physician of the gods, and he was the healer of the gods. So there is this desire to take away the suffering and to heal the world in the best capacity that he can, which is probably technology due to Mercury-Rahu combination. So Ardra is the constellation of compassionate healers, willing to give help to others, willing to kind of extend their helping hand to others. And we will also see it specifically because of his planetary periods that we're going to talk about later. So I briefly mentioned that Ardra is associated with kind of search and self-questioning, and there is also anger that's present in his chart, and especially because Mars is in the second house. It's in Cancer. Although it's debilitated in his Rashi chart, it is quite strong in his Navamsha. It is in the 10th house, getting Digbala in a Scorpio and its own sign, creating a Ruchaka Yoga. So although initially it could create challenges, he is able to use this Mars or his energy, willpower in the right direction. He mentioned in his biography himself that he was born pretty poor. His family was poor, so he through the personal efforts, through his own personal abilities, he was able to gain that financial independence quite early on in his life. And we can see it in his chart by having a challenging Mars in the second house of childhood, also ruler of the second moon being in the 12th house, aspected by Saturn. That makes the early childhood experience possibly quite difficult. Well, let's talk about that moon in the 12th house because it's an interesting position. Moon here is in Taurus, and it is in the sign that's related to material wealth. So he's the kind of man, most likely, who likes to collect things, who likes to collect and kind of multiply his own material wealth and material resources. Moon, we look at the moon kind of to see how is the person wired in the mind. And here Moon is placed in Rohini, which is symbolized by a cart loaded with material goods, which means that he is thinking, his mind is wired to think how to multiply material wealth. He's really good at that. Also being in a sign ruled by Venus, planet of art, creativity, music, dance. He probably is fond of all of those things. He likes his pleasures. He is tactile. He also likes things to be beautiful and pleasant, and very have a certain aesthetic to it, to the certain beauty to his things. Also, very strong Venus in Libra next to his Mercury is a significator of that. But overall, this is a very strong moon in the 12th house, which means that he's probably going to enjoy his life quite a bit by being in foreign lands, living somewhere away from the place of his birth. When we see exalted planet in a house that's related to distant places, like in this particular case it's the 12th house, we can certainly say that this person will be better off living away from the place of birth. And moon here is somewhat lonely. It's not surrounded by any planets on left or right side, so it makes this experience of loneliness sometimes, or it's also aspected by Saturn. It could also show some challenges for his mom, but also maybe isolation for her, but also he is himself maybe a little bit prone to melancholic moods, or maybe even depression, or from time to time, or he can experience this acute sense of loneliness. But at the same time, he's somebody who is also seeking to be, to hide a part of himself, to what he's thinking about this is the moon in the 12th house that looking for like isolation, or to be away from the crowds, and to be, he probably draws a lot of emotional strength and kind of rejuvenates by being by himself, where he can reflect and can be intuitive, and maybe somebody who enjoys actually meditation, or maybe definitely a certain amount of reflection. There is just a certain balance he needs to keep in order not to isolate himself completely from the outside world, but at the same time it's important for him to go away and kind of hide and be with his emotions on his own from time to time. So this moon in the 12th house shows that he wants to be remote and isolated, and for his emotional health it's important for him to kind of get away from it all from time to time, and to disconnect from information processing. So moon in Taurus, it's all about resources, it's all about possessions, ability to collect things. The Taurus love to collect things in order to have this like a sense of security of resources or material wealth, although they love to do these things. They're things that collect things that are somehow indication of his status. And these people aim for quite a higher status. They love to buy the best things that are out there for them. They also quite possessive and jealous when it comes to relationships or to his women, and they don't like to share too much. There is a certain softness to this man as well because of this Venus influence. There is a warm, charming, and kind side to him that he might not particularly show, or more, it's probably, moon is the type of a planet that only very close people can see. People who he lets in his inner circle are probably able to experience this, the warmth that this moon in Taurus promises. So he's someone who enjoys quite a bit his prosperity, good food, kind of material enjoyments in life, something that engages all the five senses: the smell, the touch, the hearing. He loves the music. Probably, I don't know if he is doing music himself, although I think he's might be quite interested in it. He has musical abilities, and also he has writing abilities. And Mercury rulership is partially part of it, and the ability to kind of express himself quite beautifully through beautiful speech is also shown by this moon in Taurus. Although this Mars in Cancer in the second house kind of adds a certain curveball to his speech and the way he chooses to express himself. However, his speech is quite beautiful because of this Venus influence on his Mercury and also on his moon. Let's talk a little bit about his sun in the fourth house in Hasta, in Virgo. So this is Sun in Virgo, and it is a sign that is analytical. Again, it's a sign that's ruled by Mercury, and it is in the fourth house, which means it makes him proud of his education, cars, environment where he lives, his house. He is also quite fond of like the way he thinks, his own mind. It's very bright. Because of the sun position there. He's quite analytical. He loves to break down things and see how they work. He sees the inefficiencies of processes and issues and errors very well, and constantly thinks about how to improve them. This is what he excels at actually too, as how to break down the complex ideas and in order to explain it so everybody can understand. Virgos in general, they love to be understood and to be heard, and explain things in a way that anyone can understand. They're really good at breaking things down, complex ideas, which makes them a very good teacher. His Mars is actually in Pushya too, which also shows that whenever this man talks, he loves to educate. He loves to break things that many people might not understand and explain it in a way that so they do understand. And I don't know if he will be interested in that at any point in time, but he is a really good teacher, and if he decides to do something around education or educational projects of some sort, I think it will give him a lot of kind of personal satisfaction. I think in this ability to break things down for other people. This sun in Hasta makes him a very articulate speaker. Obviously, he is ability to work with details, to have very attention to details, quite a perfectionist mind, which can be difficult for relaxation, but at the same time makes him very productive. Also, Virgo is a sign in general that is kind of like shy and has that softness to them, the desire to be of use to others, to serve other people, to heal other people. But it's not necessarily like healing, but in bringing healing like in terms of like bringing wholeness and sovereignty. The Hasta is related to this ability to is symbolized by a hand, and is related to ability to take control into your own hands and place whatever you want, and take what you want and place it in your own hands. So this is an idea, quite literally means that ability to work with hands, as in type on a keyboard, or is an ability to take control and be a leader and to lead people. Hasta people are also sometimes like to fight for take on the opponent that is much stronger than themselves. He likes the idea of solitude, as I mentioned, and also likes the idea of shining and being proud of his projects and being proud of his education and things that he has done. Kind of letting the projects be the showcase of what he's capable of. Of course, Virgo, a sun in Virgo gives an engineering mind, ability to constantly look for inefficiencies and see how he can remove them in order to improve existing processes. And this is a never-ending process. Let's talk for a second about this Mercury and Venus in Libra in the fifth house. So his ruling planet goes in the fifth house of intellect, of past life good karma. This man has probably been doing something about has earned a good karma around his Venus and Mercury planets. It is a Raj Yoga here in the fifth house. He also has a Raj Yoga in the third house, but fifth house is a house of creative intellect, ability to create something with your mind, ability to apply your creative mind in order to come up with some projects. This is also gives him ability to write, to express himself through written language. It's also a sign of harmony and beauty and aesthetics, and he's attracted to those things. Venus being a significator of women in a man's chart also shows that he likes, he's attracted to women who are beautiful and who Venus in Chitra, especially, Chitra is symbolized by a shining jewel. So it's women who are somehow bright and you know, beautiful like a shining jewel. This is another significator why he would be attracted and would be even interested in considering to purchase the largest black diamond in the world. Diamond is related to Venus, and Venus being in the constellation that it signifies a shining jewel, or quite literally is related to working with gemstones or working with precious stones. So that makes it very interesting that he would be, purchasing the largest diamond in the world, also called Enigma. So that's fascinating how that played out in his chart. He's also has this ability to see beauty in the world. You know, he's naturally attracted to harmony, diplomacy, even maybe politics. He's good at negotiating things because that's what Libra sign gives him. He's good at, tit for tat mentality. I do this for you, you do this for me, kind of this like bargaining back and forth, you know, creating contracts that are of equal, all around like fairness and equality and things that need to be pleasant and like pleasing to both parties. Whenever he makes any type of deals, he wants to make sure that everybody benefits somehow from the business that he's working in. So third house, very interesting position. Jupiter, Rahu, and Saturn in the third house. All of this in a sign of Leo. So Leo is a sign that is very kind of prominent in his life. All of these things we talked about, they're kind of part of his personality, but perhaps the part of his personality that comes forth would be the Leo, because of the way his planetary periods have been aligning. So he, until March of this year of 2023, he's been going under a major period, or Mahadasha as we call it in Vedic astrology, of Jupiter. Now, this Jupiter Mahadasha was or is in the constellation called Maga, or constellation that is symbolized by a throne room. It's related to the desire to be flourish in the world of ancestors. And so it's quite interesting, when the movie Highest of Stakes came out, he was pictured sitting on a throne holding all the attributes and wearing a crown, I think. Even so, this is like so typical of Maga, and quite literally illustrates his desire to be like a Leo, you know, to be a king, to be a leader. Rahu being in a sign of Leo shows that this is exactly what he kind of came here to do in this lifetime, in this birth. He is someone who has already been, Ketu being in Aquarius shows that he's someone who has been part of the society, part of the group, and he is really talented and creating communities and being part of the larger crowd, being able to blend in with everybody else and being kind of, you know, like a fair member of society. But in this lifetime, he's Rahu in Leo, and also Jupiter and Saturn, which is his Mahadasha right now. He's in Saturn period that just started in March of this year. It shows that he needs to learn how to be a leader to this group, you know, how to lead people while blending in and while understanding the dynamic of the groups and how the societies function and how the communities function. At the same time, being a leader to the group, being able to lead after himself. And this is what he's been doing actually quite a bit. And I just wanted to mention that Rahu in Leo shows that the qualities that he came here to develop. And Leo, of course, the main thing for Leo is being able to lead, being able to shine in front of others, being able to, you know, self-express basically, and to be proud of who he is, and take on that role and responsibility of a leader, which is a heavy task, and it takes aside from taking all the glory, it's also a lot of responsibility. And this is this brings us to this to the period of Saturn, or Mahadasha of Saturn. So before he had an influence of Jupiter, now it is a Saturn Mahadasha, very different energy. Jupiter is expansive, Saturn is contraction. Saturn is the significator and is the karaka or significator of obstacles, delays, extra heavy responsibilities. It's also depression, diseases, challenges, difficulties, all of those challenging things. But not all of it is going to be bad. Saturn here is functional benefic in his chart, which means that there will be some good things and will be some challenging things. Overall, though, that we can say that Saturn makes a person take on extra responsibility and a little bit can be challenging for the ego. Saturn is challenged here because it is placed in a sign of a mortal enemy, Sun. Saturn doesn't like Leo position. And being next to Rahu and next to Jupiter, Jupiter here is stronger. So Saturn is bringing some challenges for him in this in its period. It also rules 8th house of transformation, death, rebirth, difficulties. It makes it possible that he will be dealing with some challenges during this time. Saturn also rules 9th house at the same time, and so there will be a double influence. There will be some challenges, quite intense challenges, and also some good luck and fortune, and maybe something related to the father, to the education, to being seen in outside world, or even some kind of achievements. All of this makes this period quite productive. Saturn makes a person work really, really hard, assume a lot of responsibility, and kind of roll up the sleeves and do the dirty work and get things done. Saturn in Leo, though, is a little bit challenging for the ego. There will be a little bit of kind of self-criticism, or maybe feeling like not good enough, or feelings of I have to be better than this, or in Leo specifically, it's a challenge for the ego, and it is quite difficult thing to work through. Might be challenges, certain challenges for the parents, for the father and the mother. Saturn here aspects the moon. It's also, if you look at it from the moon, it's positioned in the 4th house from the moon, which is a house of inner health, inner peace, mother, kind of psychological health. So it might be challenging in psychologically, emotionally, also some kind of difficulties, predisposition for depression or for melancholic type of mood. However, it is also going to be, as I said, quite productive time. And although it is challenging in many aspects, it will be a time where he will be doing extra hard work, things that he might have not had the time or commitment to do before, but now this 19-year period of Saturn is going to be bringing a lot of that hard work. And this large period, Mahadasha, or long period, great period of Saturn will be broken down to sub-periods, so it's not doom and gloom for him. But in the beginning, when Mahadasha starts, the sub-period is also going to be Saturn. So it is going to be Saturn for him for the next 2 or 3 years, which can be a little bit challenging. So if you look at his chart, here it started in March 3rd of 2023. So it's possible that we're going to see a side to Richard that is very different from what he used to be during his Jupiter cycle. It will be more of a serious, more of the down-to-earth and kind of more pragmatic type side of him, where he also started talking, like the way he started to communicate has changed quite a bit, and Saturn is positioned in a house of communication, a house of personal effort and willpower. So it might be that he will feel like he needs to communicate, or his communication will be subdued, or maybe he will kind of pull himself back in the way he communicates, or his communication will be all work and kind of down to about the serious details, and not so much about like joking or bragging or like all those things that maybe he used to do. Saturn here is in the house of siblings, also his brothers and sisters. I don't know if he has brothers and sisters, but potentially it can cause distance or alienation from brothers and sisters, or some challenges in the relationship with them. Saturn is a dividing planet, so it brings that distance and coldness sometimes in relationships with his brothers and sisters. Saturn here is in Uttara Falguni nakshatra. This nakshatra is related to the ability to benefit through partnerships or benefit through marriage or partnerships. So overall, it is gives him a desire to be a patron, to kind of extend the helping hand to somebody else who he can help. And it might play out in many different ways, but I can assume or suspect that whatever projects that he will be working on. And I feel like he'll be just, working really hard in the next few years, kind of head down, roll up the sleeves, and the projects that he'll be working on, he will be doing it with this idea of, or the desire to, in order to be like a patron, to give, create a space for others to flourish. Or I guess maybe you can say it, to be able to bring, like, create an environment where other projects can be developed. Maybe this is how it's going to play out. But overall, this is highly likely also, on a personal level, is more, if he doesn't have children yet, it does stand Saturn position in 11th house from 5th, which is gives the culmination or fructification of things, which is the 5th house. It's possible that at some point in this period he will have kids, or he will also have a committed relationship, because and he will benefit through this relationship somehow as well, because of the promise of Saturn being in Uttara Falguni, which is prosperity through shared wealth, or prosperity through marriage. It also suggests this idea that during this time, during this upcoming period, he will benefit from getting together and kind of creating alliances with other people, or joining his resources with other people in order to, to come up with some, to create something. It is quite possible he will be doing more of writing, more of engineering, because this Saturn will bring the results of the Sun in the 4th house. So he will be kind of building a lot of foundational stuff that will be kind of like a playground for others people, and like a fertile ground for other people to come in and to grow their own projects. This is what I'm suspecting. If we look at his chart from Mahadasha ruler, which is from the Sun, we will see from the Saturn, we will see that Saturn rules 6th house of litigations, of enemies, of debt, of competitors, and also 7th house of partnerships. So all of this, and placed in the 1st house, all of this creates this combination of, first of all, working really hard, being of service to others, being of kind of bringing forth healing energy towards others on many different levels. And also this idea of working so hard that sometimes it can have a negative impact on personal health, overworking yourself to death, kind of working too much, too hard. So with this influence, I always recommend for people to take, to get disciplined about the rest, for taking breaks. This also suggests that the start of this period brought him this SEC, litigation, and American government is kind of like suing him for this, being Saturn a slow-moving planet that brings obstacles and delays. I suspect it might be a long process unless he decides to cut it short and to, but because Saturn is in Leo, I suspect that he is going to fight it, and he will try, but it's going to take a while, and it's going to take, because of this Saturn, it's the slowest moving planet, and it takes a while for it to see the results of it. And it's the planet that teaches patience. It's the planet that rules time and makes the passage of time, or the experience of time, very acute during its period. So person might see how the time passes, and also kind of have this like experience of time expanding and contracting. Saturn is very relentless, and like very unforgiving in that way, that it makes everything seem very slow, very delayed. Saturn also rules 7th house, place in 1st, again in this idea of one-on-one relationship, business partnerships, and all kinds of personal relationships are going to play a role in his lifetime. He's also kind of will be doing, I'm assuming, a lot of partnerships. Now Saturn is in his Navamsha, rules the 1st house. He is Aquarius rising in Navamsha, and it is placed in the 11th house of in the Mula, in the sign of Sagittarius. All of this suggests to me that also Saturn is at Makaraka in his chart, which is the significator of his soul, or his kind of, his highest aspirations in life. So Saturn is teaching him to be very humble, to be very, very patient. Sometimes it takes time very slow. But also being in the Mula Nakshatra in Navamsha, it is challenging in a way that most likely he will go through a process of kind of rebirth, or completely feeling like he is not what he used to be. He's a completely different man now. He almost the old him has died, and he needs to be reborn and show the world himself from a completely different perspective, more serious, sober, and very very, all about work, not so much talking, more doing. So this process of rebirth, or when the period planet is placed in Mula, it can be challenging in the beginning. Once the person learns to relax in this personal transformation and learns to let go of his old personality and kind of embrace the new personality that's coming forth, the process becomes easier, as long as he doesn't hold on to this kind of his old ways of being. So in this way, Saturn is a huge change that just started for him. And it can bring loneliness, it can bring solitude, it can bring isolation, which makes all Saturn significations. And person might experience that their time is passing by, the time is at his prime time, it's over maybe, or it's kind of thinking, maybe start thinking about the old age, and all of these things that Saturn is signifies will be top of mind. But that said, by the time period Saturn is over, or time passes, and he gets used to it, his new role, this new energy, and the new way of being, he will look back most likely, how like many people do, and they see that it was the most productive time in their lives. Saturn can really get you make a lot of work done. It will be very hard to relax. You will feel, it might be an inner feeling that no matter how much you do, you're not doing enough. You're working really hard day and night, but there is still more work to do. So that's the challenge of it. But the beauty of it is that you actually will get a lot done. Interesting part about his chart is also this Jupiter, Saturn, and Rahu combination makes experience of money and finances go up and downs very, very intense. Jupiter and Saturn together already can make experience volatility, financial volatility, quite intense. But when you place it with Rahu, it's like volatility on steroids. Of course, he's the man of crypto, which is the most volatile asset out there in the world. So this is an interesting thing I wanted to point out in his chart, that shows that there will be extreme up and downs with finances during his time. So in conclusion, I want to say that we are going to see a very different type of Richard moving forward. We are going to see a very serious, a hard-working man, most likely, who is way more reserved in the way he communicates, and the way the side of his shows. He will show more of a humble, hard-working side of him, where he will genuinely work hard for the benefit of the community, and who is going to go through quite challenging personal time, I think, judging from his Saturn position. But at the same time, it will also bring him very close to his true nature, to his true purpose, and will also be highly productive time that is going to be difficult while he is in it, but also very satisfying when he looks back at all the things that he has done during this time. Hope you enjoyed it. Please leave me a comment below, just to let me know if you found anything interesting in this chart, and if you want to have more of such videos, also please do let me know below. See you next time.